I have to say, I never had to watch my ex move things out of the house. He would always do it at night after me and Mina had gone to bed. So I would hear shifting and rumblings and whatever in the car, and then, so I mean, I think it would have been really hard to physically see things being moved.
Yeah.
A lot of what he took was just mostly just personal things.
Right.
So he left all of the main furniture because it was easier, but I didn't actually have to physically see anything. The only thing I physically saw was actually the last day that he left was just a rolling carry-on suitcase, and my daughter and I dropped him off at work, and I was just like, oh my God, now what do I do? Do you know what I mean?
He's not coming back.
He's not coming back. And I remember we pulled up in front of his office and he had his rolling suitcase, and I'm like, what do you do? Do you hug goodbye? Do you offer a hug goodbye? Do you just say, there's no words to say goodbye when you're there. It was such a surreal experience, There's so much that you wanted to do, but you didn't know if that would be open to be received. It's and that was only one thing that I saw. I mean, that was actually him physically, just like this was the last time he was rolling out of the house with one carry-on. That was only one. I can only imagine the emotions of seeing people shifting and moving furniture. I mean, that's just gotta be so hard.
Yeah, it is. It's an emotional component of part of the process and of divorce. You do have to go through that. Right? There's no way of avoiding it. And I love that you said that, that he did it while you weren't really watching, you and your child weren't watching, because that's something to try and do. Mm-hmm. It's a good thing to try and do. It's just not be home, or, just make yourself so that you don't have to be present when this is happening. Because it does bring up a lot of emotion, and you wanna
minimize
the emotion, because the whole process is emotional. But you can do little things like that to minimize. So set up a date where, it's a good idea to kind of take an inventory too of the everything that you have, kind of a thing, including your, pictures, albums, CDs, DVDs, videos, just take an inventory. I would say, do that. And then kind of just let your ex decide kind of what. And always keep in mind that these are separate. Separate that these are things. They can be replaced. And that if you're having emotion about letting them go, it has nothing to do really with the thing. It has to do with what it means.
I think when it comes down to like the physicality of the divorce, whether it's the car, the house, or the furnishings, I know from my experience, I had a lot of trust as far as what the value was. And, I didn't do my own research as to how to appropriately divide the assets, because I says, this is not the most important thing. So my important thing was to get the custody of Mina. Everything else, there were just things. However, I did myself a disservice because I did not check to see how much our car was valued. I did not get an evaluation of what the value is to, do an appropriate monetary exchange.
Right.
And as far as the household furnishings, I also didn't do the same. Like, how do you value, or how do you evaluate how much household items are if they're not exactly brand new and resellable? What's the resale value? Yeah. So I think I undercut a lot of myself and what I could have had, because I put a lot of trust and I didn't do my own homework. Right. So
exactly.
That's a lesson that I learned, because my car was worth less, and people said, well, you can't resell your furniture the same amount as you bought it, even if it's 6 months old. Oh. The resale value is half. But in my mind, I'm like, okay, yes, you're right. The blue book is this much. Yes, you take an extra this from the savings. Yes, our furnishings we just bought last year and we spent X amount of money. Yes, take that portion, because in my mind that was an equivalent, but it's not an equivalent.
It's not an equivalent. And, and not everything has to be put
No.
on money, because like you said, it was just easier to leave the furniture
Right.
and, but then there are things that do need to be divided. Like somebody's got to decide, it's got to be decided where
Right.
the cars, who's going to keep what car and
Right.
if there's a payment to it, how
Right.
so all of that kind of thing needs to be kind of, laid out on paper.
Yeah, I was just too
Just-
afraid to bring it up. Says, you know what, this is not a topic that I feel like I want to emotionally engage in. So for me, I says, you know what, I'm just going to let that go. But in retrospect, I'm like, it wouldn't have hurt me to have gotten all these things evaluated and say, okay, this is the evaluation. I'm willing to give you X or more because it's brand new. Or, but at least have it written down. So then I could make a more informed decision from a more
Yes.
solid point of view.
Right.
I think when you go through divorce, you get afraid to bring up these little things because you don't want to set off a thunderstorm of something else.
Right. But if it's done in an organized manner
Exactly.
and in a business-like manner,
Exactly.
then the process can become easier.
Maybe bringing a third party in.
And bringing a third party in, that's part of what I will do is just, all these things
That would have been so helpful.
third party.
But I didn't even know at that time. See, you just don't know. And I think, I'm 5 years later and you're years later from divorce. And if we had known so much of what we know now back then when we got divorced,
Right.
things, oh my
It
goodness.
would have been,
So
whole
much
different.
better.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the reasons that having these sorts of episodes or, hosting the Divorcee Cafe so people can become aware of what other elements there are
options, yeah.
to help you create a more solid structure for your divorce so that you know that you've exhausted every potential possibility before you feel emotionally pressured into one way or the other.
Right.
Because it could save a lot of time and money.
Yeah.